I guess we'll disagree if you don't believe it's a deterrent.
So how then do we progress as far as like if there's a more of an ethical law in this modern age compared to an ethical law back 2,000 years ago when the Mishnah was written? So like giving to the poor or like carrying on Shabbat to give to the poor, like that seems to be more ethical than not being able to carry on Shabbat and not giving to the poor. You understand what I mean?
You can't undermine the whole system and say
on Shabbat. You can't give money anyways. You can't do a money transaction.
But that's what I'm saying. Like the point is, like it's more ethical to give to the poor whenever you can. Whether why it seems to be more ethical to do it like that rather than being unethical and following the Mishnah. You understand my question?
It would still be undermining the halacha. Why would you have to give money on the Sabbath? Now, like if you want to get technical, doing a transaction with a credit card would not be a Torah prohibition, but a rabbinic prohibition, because the Torah only prohibits actual currency. So they wouldn't put you to death for that. However, they would first give you a warning, and then they would give you another warning, and you would have to acknowledge. Once it gets to that point, it's already spite. You're doing it to see how far you could push the court, and you can't run a country like that, where people are saying, oh yeah, I'm breaking the Sabbath, but I'm doing something greater. Now, clearly, if you were saving someone's life, you could do it. But just buying someone a cheeseburger, let's say, it seems like your intentions aren't that pure because you're trying to disorganize society. And what we call Torah is what they called civil law. And if the court couldn't exercise and adjudicate that law, I mean, really, it sounds almost like a Korach argument. It brings down a few examples of what the arguments were in the Talmud, not that this actually happened like this, but it said, like, do you need a mezuzah in a house full of Sifrei Torah? It seems sort of like, yeah, no, maybe. He was going against the status quo. There has to be checks and balances, even though you were on your way to deliver teddy bears on Christmas to somebody, right? The law still has to be kept. And why would someone who strives to be ethical, I mean, first of all, why does that person even think that giving to the less fortunate is such a merit if he's going to toss out other values that appear in the Torah? The same book that tells us to take care of the orphan, the widow, the stranger is the same book that tells us to keep the Sabbath. But you're like, what if I'm doing one mitzvah by trampling on another one?
Are we not progressing forward though? Like, it just seems that, like, what's a greater mitzvah, like giving to the poor or keeping Shabbat? As far as like, it just seems like we're not progressing forward.
But you can do that 6 days a week. You can give to the poor 6 days a week and then rest on Shabbat. Like I do volunteer work.
No, but
sometimes
Shabbat is supposed to be a party
on Saturday, but I don't do it on Saturday because that would be considered working. So I say to myself, I can help them 6 days a week at the Crown Heights Mutual Aid, but on Saturday I have to take a break and rest. Like there's that one day where you just don't help those people. Like.
But the 6 other days is that when you work on the seventh day, you're supposed to open up your house and bring people in for Shabbat and let them bring food and you bring food and it's supposed to be a joyous occasion. Like 6 days we work and on the seventh day we rest. Like why make a prohibition against like doing good when people are going to bring things and make it a joyous occasion? Like for me that law just seems to be a 2,000-year-old law, which should be progressive.
Yeah, but this is still a religion. That's the thing. God didn't make a distinction between these laws. If you appreciate God for all his ethical laws, then you should also appreciate him for his ceremonial laws. Make time to do both. It just seems like bad planning to say that the only day I could give money to the poor is on Shabbat.
What I'm saying more is it should be an open house and it should be for everyone. Like Abraham, like he wouldn't have turned away people coming to his tent on Shabbat if they were carrying a bottle of wine. You know what I mean? Like it just seems we're going backwards with these.
Oh no, that's different. That you could give. Someone comes to your house, you're basically feeding them with food that you bought. You're saying that you're going to take a wad of cash out of your pocket and just give it to people on Shabbat and say, now which commandment is more important? I think that God has made it possible in the vast majority of cases to be able to keep Shabbat properly and at the same time still take care of the poor. Now, why is it either or? This is still a religion. We haven't fallen into pure humanism here. I think the ceremonial laws are there to strengthen the ethical laws. But to say that, no, I'm going to do like Thomas Jefferson and strip out all the miracles and just stay with the virtues and the ethics, I think that you watered down Torah like that.
Yeah, I understand. But unless the Sanhedrin is reformed and then they change that law and they move it forward, like, who might have said change it, but...
Yeah, they can't change Torah laws.
Sounds like
that's more of a rabbinic...
Right.
No, but it sounds it's more of a rabbinic law. To carry is not in Torah. To light a fire is in Torah.
Right. Buying and selling on the Sabbath is also not in the Torah. I think that appears in the book of Amos. So yes, the rabbis could do away with rabbinic commands. They can't do away with the Torah command. But if they didn't do away with it and you still chose to behave in such a manner, I think it would behoove you to live outside of the land of Israel because they lash you for it. But I understand. I mean, you're clearly trying to do the right thing, but you're almost trying to streamline the religion where ceremony just doesn't exist. But I think it's really you picking and choosing what should be kept and what shouldn't be kept. Torah is a package, and that's what we don't try to water it down. We try to strip away what's not essential, but that doesn't mean that there are no checks and balances, that there isn't ceremonial law that has to be kept. So there has to be some pomp and there has to be some ceremony in order to make it colorful.
I'm not saying to change it. I understand the law and I understand why it's there, and it's in the Mishnah. This is what we have to follow. But I do read some of the laws in the Mishnah. I think this is backwards. Like, why, if we are supposed to hang our boots on an ethical religion, and something that is moral in society, some of the laws in the Mishnah, which, okay, I have to follow, right? I find a little bit backwards, and that's it, So, in
terms of carrying, there's many different ways that you can carry on Shabbat and not be carrying. For some reason, people limit it to the Shabbos belt, but that's just one way they became popular. If you carry anything in an unusual manner, if you wanted to walk around with a bottle of Manischewitz under your Borsalino or whatever, that could technically be allowed. Now, this is all fixed if you live within an Eruv. Not that in America there's any notion of a kosher Eruv, but whatever. My community claims to have an Eruv. Do I use it? I'm normal. What am I going to tell my daughter she can't carry stuff on Shabbat with her friends or whatever, like in the Eruv that everyone accepts, even though I know that that's not a real Eruv? There's ways to do it. Now, carrying cash and handing over cash, and why you be handing over wads of sweaty cash. Anyways, fine. All right, Jake. Jake's always making it interesting.
Jake's good. I like Jake. He's thank you.
I better bounce. It's starting to rain, so I better go. Thanks again, Rabbi. Good on you. Good on you, John.
Thank you.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.
Yeah.
Shabbat shalom.
Yeah, tonight. It's not tonight. Yeah.
Right. Evelyn did want to say something before we go. Evelyn had something on the side chat. How do we know what is rabbinical and what is Torah? But you want to go over that real quick before we close the show? Just a real quick, easy.
I mean, just read the Torah. Heck, you could read the Torah probably in one sitting. If you have a Sunday free, just hop through it, read through it. And really, there's enough audio books of the Torah out there. Heck, a lot of them are produced by Christians that are dramatized. So you hear Moses speaking and God speaking with a British accent and birds in the background and waterfalls. And you could just sit on your porch and just listen to the whole Torah. I think it's even more powerful than reading it. If you could listen to it verse by verse, these guys don't skip anything. It's clearly going to be some Christian translation, which is fine. I mean, I hold that many times Christian translations are better than Jewish translations. In many cases, it'll open up the Torah for you. Like many people who start falling asleep that when reading the Torah are probably people who are just not people who learn best by reading. I mean, some people learn best by hearing. There's whole sets of Chumash online that you could download and listen to in a dramatized voice. When Miriam is talking, it's a woman talking. It's like, wow, this is real. I mean, sometimes when you read, you forget who's speaking. So like that, you could know what's actually there and still be a rabbinic Jew at the same time and be able to know that when your rabbi gives a mitzvah or a halacha over, right away you can say that's not in the Torah. That's in the rabbis. Now, sometimes the rabbis will interpret a pasuk in the Torah or do what's called an asmachta, a rabbinic practice with a Torah hint. The key is to memorize the Torah because that's the basis. The basis of your religion is not Tanakh or Nach. It's the 5 books of Moses. You should view the rest of Nach on the level of the Mishnah itself. Why is it okay that the rabbis that appear in the Mishnah are okay to canonize these books and in many times write these books? Because it says in the Tosefta that it was the Beis Din of Hiskiyahu and Melech who wrote the books in Tanakh. It's okay for them to write it and compile it. But for some reason, Sefer Yeshayahu carries more weight than Shisha Sidre, Shas. Come on, guys. This is a new way. It's really an old way, but it seems like a new way to understand Judaism in the quickest way possible instead of getting stuck on first stage thinking and just regurgitating what rabbis have been telling you over and over again. Yeah.
Old is new now. That's what they say. Old is new. Rabbi, if we liked what we heard tonight, where can we find more of you?
TorahJudaism.com.